Doug, this is a labor of love. This is a museum that isn't owned by a corporate giant
No, it isn't.
or a massive nonprofit. This is your museum.
Yes, it is. It was built by my wife, myself, my two boys when they were younger, and a bunch of volunteers.
Mm-hmm. Now, I see a lot of memorabilia in here. This is the GI Museum in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Where did you get these items?
I've purchased a lot of it. I started collecting when I was 11 years old. All of my uncles were in World War II. My father was in the military. I was in the military. My son is now in the military. So the military life is nothing strange to me. But I saw that our children needed to be educated, and they needed to experience the GI. From everything from cigarettes to soap to uniforms to helmets to packs, everything needs to be shown to them, and they need to realize what everybody has had to go do all of these years so that we can remain free today.
Mm-hmm. And you took this on by yourself. I mean, you know, it wasn't a conglomerate or a big business venture.
No, sir. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, but my wife and I work a second job. I've retired, but I work another job now to pay for this. And we pay for it every month out of our own pockets. We do take donations, but for the most part, we're financing it.
Well, now you're not, if I could say this, on a strip on a main road. You really need to know where the GI Museum is. It just happens to be by your house,
yes,
which really makes it nice.
Yes, well, we bought the property and cleared it. We could not afford a piece of property up on the interstate or even a piece of property on the local Highway 90. So this was kind of what we could do. And when you find the signs, you're kind of guided down here.
You have very good signage, I'll tell you that, because I put it in the GPS, but you have signs.
Yes,
so
sir,
you just follow the signs and you're fine.
Yes.
Now, this, let's see, this has expanded. This was one building,
yes,
and then you had to expand.
Yes, we actually ran out of room, and we added onto the building right after the hurricane of all hurricanes. And luckily, and it was kind of surprising, nothing really hit the museum. It really tore up our house, but the museum survived basically unscathed. And that was kind of like maybe some divine intervention.
This is concrete, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's a concrete building.
It's steel and concrete.
Steel
yes.
and concrete. A little stronger than your house.
Yes, sir. But anytime we're threatened with a major hurricane, everything in the building gets packed up. Every uniform, every piece of paper, everything gets packed up and placed in waterproof boxes, and everything gets basically stored in cocoons inside the building. So if something were to happen, we would still have the artifacts, because you can't go buy this stuff anymore.
No, you can't. That's true. I suppose, do you take donations?
Yes, we do. A lot of times we'll have people come through the museum and they'll say, well, my dad died and I don't know what to do with the stuff. Do you want it? Absolutely, yes. We don't want this stuff to end up in trash cans. One time I was driving down the road in Biloxi and I saw a Foot Locker sitting beside the road. And before I would take it, I went and asked the lady at the house, are you really meaning to throw that away? She goes, yes, that was my dad. I don't want it anymore. So we try to rescue it, and we try to save it, and we try to preserve it for history.
Now, you have other people helping you here. I would assume they're all past military as well?
Yes, Mr.
These are volunteers?
Yes, I have two volunteers, Mr. Henry Russell and Mr. Les Sturdivant. Yes, they're both military veterans, and they have the passion that I do. It's just I happen to have the building.
Exactly. But they also, the amount of information that they can give somebody, I bet if somebody asks them a question, they don't say, oh, I don't know, I'd have to look that up. They probably know it.
Well, we don't have a lot of automated tours. What we do is we conduct a tour, and we tell the people about specific items, and we give them a little background. Then we answer questions, and that's where really a lot of the information comes about. We talked about everything in the building, and then they ask a lot of questions. Sometimes they'll stay 2 and 3 hours.
Is the museum set up in a particular fashion from one World War to another, or from one conflict to another?
It starts with World War I. There's an enlisted man's uniform, and there's an officer's uniform. There's another uniform that belonged to a man by the name of John Ripley Walker. Ripley, Mississippi is actually named after his family.
Wow.
So that's something in here. And then it progresses all the way around through Operation Enduring Freedom, which is Afghanistan. I have one of the largest collections of women's memorabilia in the Southeast. And my wife told me, I'm worried about you because you're buying lipstick and purses. But I couldn't leave out the woman's contribution to World War II, because without them we might not have made it, because all of the guys were overseas fighting. They were building ships. They were riveting airplanes. They were joining every branch of the military, and they provided absolutely necessary function.
And they made a lot of donuts.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. The donut dollies.
The donut dollies. I don't know what we would have done without them.
No, me either.
A little for the stomach as well.
Yes, the donuts and the coffee was something that really GIs really appreciated.
Now, is the museum open all the time?
The museum's open the first and the third Sunday of every month, and it's open every Wednesday. I have one volunteer who opens it every Wednesday, Mr. Russell, and Mr. Sturdivant, and Mr. Russell help me on the first and the third Sunday. We're going to expand our hours as soon as I work a little more and pay down the debt, so I can be here a little bit more myself.
Yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I would assume if there's a group coming and they would like to come in, do you take private tours?
Absolutely. We take private tours from groups, veterans groups, school groups, Cub Scout, Boy Scouts, tour groups. Just call the number and we will arrange to be here. If we're not open on a particular day, I will be here. If it's after hours, I will be here. All you have to do is call.
And outside, I see some memorabilia.
Yes, there's two Huey helicopters outside that we are in the process of restoring. One of them to complete function, and we have a Korean War ambulance, and we have 4 Jeeps in the collection, spanning from World War II all the way up through the Vietnam War.
Now, is there a catalog where you can find these things, or does somebody say, "Hey, I saw a Jeep down the road that has been there for years"?
2 of the Jeeps. One of them I went all the way to Lawton, Oklahoma to get. The other Jeep came from Oklahoma, and one of them had been purchased by a farmer at Frederick Army Airfield after the war. And he had it all those years, and it finally just kind of died, and he left it sitting in the field, and it ended up here, and it's been completely, totally restored. Every nut, bolt, screw, and washer, 2.5 year restoration.
Wow! Do people realize what the government does with all of this these items that are no longer used?
No, the American government does a real good job of destroying a lot of historical artifacts, because we don't tend to save them like other countries do.
Yeah, and so you a lot of times look around for that. And you're always looking for items.
Absolutely. We're always looking for items. If we get like a flight helmet in or something, and it needs to be restored, and we're down to like one part, then it's off to the internet, and I'm making phone calls to my people that know what I'm looking for. I told a gentleman in Missoula, Montana, that sells memorabilia one time, that I wanted a World War I officer's hat. He wrote a note, stuck it on his bulletin board. 7.5 years later, a package appeared on the front doorstep. My wife says, "What have you bought now?" I said, I don't know. I didn't do that. Well, he had found that hat and sent it to me 7.5 years later.
So you'll take anything but aircraft carriers and destroyers.
Well, if I could figure out a way to get it down the street, I would take that, yes.
Doug, thank you so much for talking to us about your museum. And I know we're going to be sending people to your website, but give it to us now.
It's www.gimuseum.com.